Whodunnit by David Sheriff. 6 characters: Colonel Mustard, Miss Scarlet, Mrs. Peacock, Professor Plum, the Reverend Green, and Mrs. White, are sitting in the library of an isolated country house on an island off the English coast.
This is ridiculous. No telephone, no means of getting off the island, or even out of this blessed house.
Cursed house, more like, Colonel. We're completely locked in.
It's just a practical joke, Miss Scarlet. We'll soon clear it up.
We'll just have to wait for help to arrive. It won't be long.
How can you sit there looking so calm, Mrs. White, when we know there's a murderer out there waiting to pick us off one by one?
I'll make everyone a nice cup of tea.
I wouldn't go into the kitchen if I were you, Mrs. Peacock. I think Mr. Black is still lying there.
Oh, nonsense.
Famous last words.
Poor Mr. Black.
He simply tripped over while carrying a dangerous knife. It was an unfortunate accident.
What about Miss Grey, then? A very strange death, apparently, falling off the parapet. What was she doing up there?
I think Monsieur Beige might have been able to answer that. But unfortunately, we haven't seen him since 5 o'clock.
Since we heard that terrible scream.
We'll have to assume he's missing, presumed dead.
Is there nothing we can do?
Either there is someone out there determined to kill us, or we have to think that one of us is the murderer.
One or more of us.
How terrible, Professor. Who could it possibly be?
Well, I, Colonel Mustard, am definitely not the murderer. I can assure you of that.
What a stupid remark. Any of us could be the murderer and still deny it. My next crime could be to seize you by the neck and strangle you to death.
Steady on, Professor. You've made your point. Let's keep this civilized, shall we?
Could you say a prayer for us, Reverend Green?
I'm not sure prayer will be much good at the moment.
That's not very helpful.
I'm afraid I'm not a very good vicar. I have a history of, well, let's leave that to one side, shall we? That's probably why I'm here.
What do you mean?
Haven't you thought to ask yourself why we were all invited here?
I thought it was meant to be a jolly house party. Put that idea on the scrap heap. I'm finding this extremely tedious.
Don't you have some dark secret, Colonel? Some deeply shameful misdemeanor you managed to get away with?
Certainly not, Green. How dare you suggest I have anything to hide?
What about you, Professor Plum?
Nothing, unless... Oh, no, it can't be.
I know. It was a student of yours whose exam you marked too harshly. You drove him to suicide.
My God, how did you know that?
I was guessing.
So, after all these years, it's finally caught up with me. I suppose it comes as a kind of relief now the hour of retribution is at hand.
Professor, simply giving a student bad marks is surely not a crime serious enough to die for.
To die for? That has a certain ring to it.
Whoever this killer is, only a psychopath would be demanding a life for a life in a case like that.
Ah, Mrs. White, surely a nice lady like you has never committed any crime, let alone killed someone.
I've been thinking. It wasn't murder exactly. More, like accidental death. You see, I was an ambulance driver in the war.
Lord, don't tell us. You ran over a badger.
Not a badger, but, oh, it's too terrible.
A nun?
No.
A small child?
No, a wounded soldier. I put my foot on the accelerator instead of the brake.
An easy mistake to make, Mrs. White. I've done it 1,000 times.
He was too lame to jump out of the way.
You put him out of his misery.
No, that's an awful thing to say. You can't possibly mean it.
I saw action in Burma, some of the fiercest of the war. The chap beside me shot by a sniper. Still conscious, but half his head blown away. I had to finish the job.
finish the job?
Shot him with my revolver.
My God, we are all killers or guilty of death in one way or another. Retribution is at hand. Oh, spare us, O Lord, we have sinned.
No, we haven't. At least I haven't killed anyone, either intentionally or accidentally on purpose.
Are you sure, Miss Scarlet? Attractive woman like you, bound to have plenty of lovers. Perhaps you terminated an unwanted child.
How dare you? Even if I did, that's not murder. It was done by a doctor. If anyone's a murderer, it's the doctor.
This is getting us nowhere. If we've each been responsible for a human death, we still don't know who is threatening to exact retribution, if that's what it is.
Maybe it's ourselves. We're being made to act as our own judge and jury.
That still doesn't tell us who the executioner is.
You're obsessed with death and killing people, Colonel. You're sick.
Yes, you're right. I am sick. Now at last we're getting somewhere. Let's say I have a terminal illness. The doctors have given me 3 weeks to live, so I decide to make the best of it, provide myself with a little amusement before the candle goes out. How do you like my little plot?
So you are the murderer.
You swine! You won't get away with it.
I have so far.
I've a good mind to strangle you with my bare hands right now.
Please, gentlemen, let's be civilized. I'm sure we can talk this over. So far, only 3 of us have died. We should declare a truce.
4. You're forgetting Mrs. Peacock, now surely lying in the kitchen beside poor Mr. Black.
You villain! You planned the whole thing!
He's lying. How could Colonel Mustard have killed Mrs. Peacock in the kitchen while he's been sitting here in the library with us?
I think you'll find the kettle was rather poorly wired. Bit of a death trap, really.
Murderer!
So now you do believe me.
Now look here, Mustard. This practical joke has gone too far. I'm putting you under citizen's arrest. Reverend Green, help me pin him down. Use that piece of cord.
It's no use. I've planned it down to the last detail. Arrest me. Kill me if you like. Nobody will get out of this house alive.
You're bluffing.
Try me.
Ah!
What have I done?
Miss Scarlet, you've killed Colonel Mustard.
With the lead piping.
In the library.
God, he said he was the murderer.
Now, who would like a nice cup of tea?
Miss Peacock,
Mrs. Peacock.
you're alive? So you weren't electrocuted?
Why should I be? I'm very much alive. So was Mr. Black. There was a lot of blood, but it was just a flesh wound. Oh, what happened to Colonel Mustard?
He's dead.
He said he was the murderer. He was going to kill us all.
How awful.
Ah, he must have been bluffing. There are no corpses. I fear that Miss Grey and Monsieur Beige don't exist. They are figments of our imagination.
Colonel Mustard, wake up. I'm sorry. Wake up!
How about that cup of tea, then?
You have been listening to Whodunnit by David Sheriff, with Gregory Cox as Colonel Mustard, Rebecca Bouyeha as Miss Scarlet, Carolyn Pertwee as Mrs. Peacock, Mansell David as Professor Plum, Harry Sachs as the Reverend Green, and Sylvia Carson as Mrs. White.